Welcome to the Cheating Story Lab. At 2:47 p.m. on our 15th wedding anniversary, a bouquet of white roses and lilies, Lindsay's favorites, was delivered to our home. I was in my home office reviewing church financial reports when the doorbell rang. From my window, I observed a delivery person handing the flowers to Lindsay. I thought it might be a prank or her mother remembering the date, but as she read the card, her face turned pale. She retreated into our house with the bouquet. No signs of excitement or gratitude followed. Instead, the door to our bedroom closed after a few minutes. I left the flowers on her dresser with the card face down, knowing her signal for privacy. She was in the bathroom, and the sound of running water indicated she needed space. Upon reading the card, I found a blessing from above. Every instant with you feels like a blessing, eagerly awaiting Tuesday. HH, not Garrett, merely an initial written in masculine script unlike mine. I left the card undisturbed and went back to my office. My hands were still, my heart beat steady. With 15 years of marriage, 2 children, a joint ministry at Riverside Community Church where I was treasurer, it all needed scrutiny through fresh eyes, but I didn't accuse her yet. Not immediately. Previously, I worked as a fraud investigator for a regional bank before moving to nonprofit accounting. I knew the most frequent error people made when uncovering deceit, acting on feelings before collecting facts. Accusation without proof brings denial. Proof without preparation results in incomplete justice. So I began gathering evidence. That night, Lindsay walked in, her face bright, wearing the dress I'd given her for Christmas last year. She booked a table at the restaurant where I'd proposed over wine. We discussed the children, the church's impending mission trip, and her gratitude for our strong spiritual marriage. I observed her lie effortlessly, someone well-practiced in deception. "The flowers were lovely," I said cautiously. "From your mother?" A brief expression of surprise followed by quick calculation. "Yes," she replied thoughtfully, though her mother had been gone for 2 years. I left for the restroom and texted my sister-in-law. "Did Lindsay's mom send flowers today?" The prompt reply arrived. "What? Mom passed in 2023. Is Lindsay all right?" I deleted the conversation and returned to our table. Lindsay showed me photos on her phone of the kids at school. I nodded, smiled, suggested we order dessert. Perfect husband celebrating a perfect anniversary at home while she slept. I accessed our phone records through our family plan account. 47 times in the last month, Lindsay's call log displayed a specific number. I messaged that number, 218. Upon using a reverse lookup service, the name connected was Howard Mitchell, the youth pastor at Riverside Community Church, a married man with 3 children whom I had recently granted a $4,000 budget for the youth ministry retreat. My stomach churned as my mind clarified. This wasn't mere infidelity. There might be church funds misused. My capacity as treasurer, I held fiduciary responsibility. As a husband, I had a marriage to safeguard, whether it was to preserve or dissolve with decorum. As a father, I needed to shield my children from the impending turmoil. I started compiling evidence. Initially, I copied Lindsay's phone data onto a secure drive using software I'd kept from my investigator days, a legal move since I was the account holder and paid the bills. The messages I unearthed were more damning than explicit. They weren't merely sexual, they were spiritual. Howard referred to Lindsay as God's gift to him, while she called him the husband she had prayed for. They had been exchanging messages for 8 months. Their encounters took place during her Bible study nights and his pastoral gatherings. They perceived their clandestine relationship as divinely appointed, convinced that God had engineered their union, transcending the boundaries of their respective marriages due to an irresistible spiritual bond. I uncovered evidence suggesting they had utilized my church credit card, issued to Howard for ministry-related expenses, at hotels on 4 occasions. The bills mentioned regional pastoral conferences that turned out to be non-existent. I corroborated Lindsay's calendar with Howard's church schedule. Every Tuesday evening when she claimed to attend women's Bible study, Howard had youth leader training marked down. Neither group actually convened. I verified this by inquiring casually about the ongoing meetings from the women's ministry coordinator. "Oh no, we switched to monthly gatherings last year," she had responded. "Didn't Lindsay inform you?" For 6 months, I upheld a facade of normalcy. I commended Lindsay on her commitment to church activities. I endorsed Howard's financial requests with meticulous record-keeping. I supervised my son's soccer team, participated in school recitals, chaired our church's finance committee meetings with Howard participating. He would gaze at me earnestly and discuss responsible management, while allegedly having an affair with my wife on my organization's expenses. I was constructing a watertight case, but I needed the conclusion to be incontrovertible. The chance arose when Howard declared he had been offered the position of senior pastor at a larger church across the state. The board arranged a celebration service for his final Sunday. The entire congregation would attend. His wife, Camilla, a kindergarten teacher I'd met on numerous occasions, would be in the front row with their children. Lindsay, naturally, would be present as a worried church member lamenting his departure. I had 4 weeks to prepare. I engaged a private investigator, not for evidence I was lacking, but for the one piece of information I couldn't procure myself, current evidence of their continuing relationship. 2 weeks prior to his funeral service, the Pi supplied images of Howard and Lindsay at a roadside motel, which were captured in their parking lot at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was under the impression that Lindsay was attending a dentist appointment, while Howard claimed he was making a hospital visit. I had engaged both a divorce attorney and a criminal defense lawyer, with the latter serving as a consultant. The manner in which Howard handled church funds could be considered embezzlement. Their actions regarding false expense reports were undoubtedly fraudulent. Prior to my relocation, I wished to fully understand the legal terrain. Subsequently, I crafted the presentation. As the church treasurer, I had legitimate control over our Sunday morning announcement system. A week before Howard's farewell, I proposed creating a tribute slideshow highlighting his ministry, which was gratefully received by the AV team as one less task to prepare. I developed a well-structured evidence package, arranged as a presentation incorporating audio and documentation. The morning broke crisp and sunless. I rose early to prepare breakfast for my kids, aged 12 and 9, informing them they'd spend the day with their aunt. My sister consented without query. I'd conveyed that there was an urgent church matter I needed to address, keeping the children focused. Lindsay donned her church attire, remarking on Howard's departure, stating he had been a significant boon for the community. "Indeed," I murmured. "He has been quite impactful." We arrived 40 minutes ahead of schedule. I informed Lindsay I needed to review the audio-visual setup. She then conversed with acquaintances while I did so. Howard stood at the entrance, his spouse by his side, their children looking ill at ease in formal garb. I assumed my position at the AV station, ensuring all connections were secure. The presentation was on my laptop. The church system held a dummy file for potential failure. The service started at 10, featuring opening worship announcements, a song from the youth choir, and Senior Pastor Douglas addressing the congregation. He began by acknowledging 5 years of dedicated ministry from youth pastor Howard Mitchell. Before Howard delivered his farewell message, the treasurer Garrett presented a tribute honoring Howard's service. I approached the stage as planned, with 200 expectant faces looking up at me. Howard was in the front row, wearing a confident smile. Lindsay was several rows back, already shedding tears over the impending nostalgia. Camilla Mitchell sat next to her husband, holding their youngest daughter's hand. "Thank you, Pastor Douglas," I said, maintaining my composure. "Howard has left an indelible mark on this church, and I wanted to share that impact with everyone here." I pressed the remote button. The picture of the flower delivery I took through my office window, time-stamped and dated to mark our anniversary, displayed behind me. Lindsay's face was visible in the image as she read the card. The congregation murmured in confusion, and Howard's smile faltered. I explained that on May 14th of this year, it wasn't me who sent flowers to our home to my wife, but instead her youth pastor. The message on the card read, "To my blessing from above, every moment with you is grace, counting the hours until Tuesday." The sanctuary fell silent, and I clicked again to show text message screenshots. These messages were carefully chosen for clarity without being overtly sexual, displaying Howard's phone number at the top, and read, "You're the answer to prayers I didn't know I was praying. Tuesday can't come fast enough. Your husband doesn't deserve you. God meant you for me." Lindsay abruptly stood up, causing her chair to scrape against the floor. "Garrett," she said, "what are you doing? Please sit down." I didn't look at her as I spoke. "We're merely at the beginning." She chose not to settle, instead making a beeline for the exit. 2 functionaries stood guard there. I had privately updated them half an hour prior, furnishing them with sufficient proof to discreetly halt anyone from departing. This wasn't confinement. It was the culmination of a crucial revelation. I systematically advanced through the subsequent slides. Hotel bills billed to the church card, expense reports detailing fictitious conferences, and calendar overlaps demonstrating that every Bible study night and counseling session coincided perfectly with hotel check-ins. Over the past 8 months, I detailed, Howard Mitchell had accrued $6,247 in personal expenses from church funds. These funds, donated by you in trust, were utilized to support an extramarital affair with my wife. The relationship was camouflaged under the pretext of ministry activities, using church resources, church time, and church trust. Eventually, Howard reacted. He surged to his feet, his face flushed. "This is false, Garrett. You're apparently experiencing a collapse of some sort." I moved on to the next slide, revealing photographs of Howard and Lindsay embracing in a motel parking lot, dated 2 weeks back. Another image showed them entering a room together. The last photo depicted their exit 90 minutes later. These images were captured by a licensed private investigator on November 19th, a Tuesday. I turned to Howard. "You informed the church office you were visiting Grace Memorial Hospital." However, no congregation members were admitted that day. I verified this fact. Camilla Mitchell let out an audible sound, neither gasp nor sob. She collected her children and headed for the exit. The deacons made way for her. Despite any other events today, she deserved a dignified departure. Pastor Douglas had pale complexion. The board members were staring at each other in disbelief. Several people were crying. An elderly woman was angrily texting, likely informing those absent. "I'm not here for compassion," I said. "I'm here because this church needs honesty. You entrusted your youth pastor with your children, your donations, your spiritual guidance. You trusted my wife and me as a model Christian family. In essence, it was all a deceptive act based on betrayal." I moved to the last slide, a straightforward text document. Immediately, I'm stepping down from my position as church treasurer. I have prepared a thorough financial audit detailing every fraudulent expense and falsified report. This evidence has been submitted to the church board, our religious leadership, and our lawyer. I have also filed for divorce and reported the financial fraud to local law enforcement. Howard Mitchell will be under investigation for embezzlement. My marriage is at an end. I shut the laptop and looked straight at Howard, who slumped back into his seat. "You referred to my wife as a blessing from God. You employed faith as a cover for deception, swindling people who confided their valuable assets in you." As I left the stage, my voice remained steady. "I hope your next church thoroughly investigates your past." Exiting through the side door, I watched the sanctuary erupt into tumultuous chaos, voices raised, cries echoing, footsteps hastening in diverse directions. I sped to my sister's home and cradled my children close. The ensuing fallout transpired over the subsequent 3 months, as meticulously orchestrated as planned. Howard Mitchell was dismissed swiftly. The church council unanimously agreed to his termination before the day was through. His proposition for a new church was revoked following my presentation of the comprehensive evidence file they'd solicited, and I complied. He was accused of embezzlement and fraud by the county prosecutor. Though the criminal trial lingered, his legal bills were already pushing him toward insolvency. Camilla filed for divorce a week later and was granted sole custody. Multiple church families established a fund to aid her and the kids. At first, Lindsay implicated me as her adversary, publicly slandering me out of resentment. However, this account crumbled when the church's legal representative assessed my evidence and verified all points. Her lawyer then advised her to accept the settlement terms I proposed, given the substantiated infidelity and fraud issues. I retained the house. She received the car and half our non-retirement savings. During weekdays, I maintained full custody of the children, with supervised visits granted during weekends. The judge stated in his decision that revealing financial crimes to victims is not considered harassment, regardless of location. Although they faced difficulties, I promptly secured them counseling services. I clarified in terms they could understand that their mother's actions were detrimental to our family, that it was not their fault, and that I would always be there for them. My child inquired whether I continued to trust in God following the events at the church. I expressed my faith lies in truth, I replied. If God truly exists, He approves of both seeking the truth and safeguarding those we cherish. Riverside Community Church underwent a comprehensive financial overhaul. They introduced stricter monitoring procedures, compulsory ethics education, and background check policies that I had suggested years prior, but were deemed excessively intrusive at the time. The new treasurer was a retired CPA who offered her services pro bono. I received a mix of responses from the congregation. Some commended my bravery, while others believed I should have dealt with it privately to preserve the church's image. I chose not to argue with them. The church's reputation was already tarnished before I spoke a word. I merely exposed the existing damage. 3 individuals from the church contacted me, sharing their experiences of being betrayed by religious leaders, but advised to forgive silently and shield the ministry. One individual disclosed to me that observing me present proof openly empowered her to share her own predicament. This singular event validated every instance of preparation. The trial for Howard's criminal case is scheduled for the following spring. The prosecution has my statement prepared. His defense attorney has already proposed a plea agreement, hoping I would advocate for leniency. I refused. I'm not vindictive, but I have no mercy for those who systematically abuse trust. It was our 16th wedding anniversary when I took my children hiking. We reached a summit at sunset, and my daughter asked if I was sad. No, I replied truthfully. I'm free. For 6 months, I lived with betrayal in silence, gathering evidence while maintaining a semblance of normalcy. I saw my wife smile at me during dinner, but she was texting another man. I sat in church board meetings with Howard discussing finances while knowing he was embezzling. Some people considered my public revelation as unkindness. They don't grasp the balance between containment and contagion. If I had kept matters confidential, Howard would have transitioned to his new church unscathed. He'd find himself in a position to target fresh, vulnerable individuals and exploit new resources. Lindsay would have spun a narrative portraying herself as a victim of my domineering actions. Keeping secrets shields predators. Exposing the truth safeguards societies. The flowers continue to trouble me occasionally, not because they symbolized deceit, but because they embodied such careless arrogance. Howard sent them to my home on my anniversary, assuming I would never suspect. His level of disdain necessitated an equally resolute counteraction. I rest easy knowing I responded accordingly. My children are recovering. I'm rebuilding. The church is mending with enhanced precautions. Howard and Lindsay are experiencing the repercussions fitting their decisions. Camilla and her kids have backup networks and new beginnings. The system functioned because I ensured it did, step by step, within legal boundaries and without remorse. When someone inquires about my regrets regarding the public altercation, I share with them the gratitude letter I received from a woman who had been deceived during pastoral counseling by Howard 2 years prior. She believed she had misunderstood his intentions and blamed herself. My speech validated her experience and provided clarity for her. She thought she was insane, she wrote. You made me realize I wasn't. Thank you for valuing truth over appearances. This response addresses anyone doubting. My concern wasn't about maintaining a pleasant image. It was about halting harm and uncovering the truth. Such moral priorities don't necessitate impeccable politeness. The last time I saw Lindsay was during our final divorce hearing. She appeared thinner, worn out. Her attorney handled all communication. When the judge completed the proceedings, she glanced at me once. I didn't avert my gaze, but I also did not engage. There was nothing more to discuss. She made her decisions, I reacted. The outcomes were just the natural course of events. Stepping from the courtroom, I experienced the same sense of composure as I did on that stage half a year prior. Assured, lucid, convinced that I'd performed precisely what the circumstance demanded. Not with anger or triumph, but with the tranquil proficiency of someone who's resolved a puzzle correctly. The flowers were delivered on a Tuesday afternoon. They were meant to convey grace and blessings, yet they sparked 6 months of inquiry culminating in public scrutiny. Howard intended them as a romantic gesture. However, they became evidence. That's the contrast between those who misuse trust and those who safeguard it. They act on impulse and arrogance. We react with planning and precision. I sent his love letters to his entire church not out of vengeance but for transparency, not to wound him but to deter him, not due to anger but because of duty, and I would make the same choice again.